There's a moment in Aliens, James Cameron's sequel to Alien, and by most measures the better film, that gets skipped out every time someone talks about the movie's most famous lines. Everyone remembers Hudson's "Game over, man, game over." The sound of a trained Marine completely unraveling out loud in front of the people counting on him. Fewer people remember what happens to Gorman, the lieutenant commanding the mission, in the quiet scene right after the disaster he caused. Ripley asks him how he's doing. He starts to answer, "One hell of a hangover. Look, Ripley, and never finishes the sentence. She cuts him off. Forget it. One is panic shouted into the room. The other is a man who can't even get the apology out. Different failures, same movie, same night. And the gap between who these two men are in the middle of the story and who they become at the end says something true about all of us. Not just soldiers, not just fictional characters, but anyone who's ever had a very bad day and had to decide what to do with the next one. Let's start with Gorman. Gorman is the commanding officer sent in with the Colonial Marines. Young, by the book, clearly aware he's leading veterans who don't fully respect him yet. And when first contact with the aliens goes wrong, Gorman doesn't yell, he doesn't overreact, he does something quieter and in its own way more frightening. He freezes. Orders start contradicting each other. His voice goes flat. He's still technically in command, but command has stopped meaning anything because the person holding it has nothing left to give. It takes Ripley, not even authorized, not even supposed to be issuing orders, to physically grab the controls and get the survivors out. Gorman doesn't hand over command. He simply stops being able to hold it, and someone else has to take it before people die. Now Hudson. Hudson is loud where Gorman is silent. Trained, competent, mouthy, the kind of guy who talks a big game right up until the moment the game becomes real. And when it becomes real, Hudson doesn't freeze. He unravels out loud. He says the thing that everyone else is thinking and trying not to say, that they're not getting out of this, that it's over, and says it in front of the very people who need him to hold it together. It's a different flavor of collapse in Gorman's, not paralysis, panic with a microphone. Here's what the movie does that most stories don't have the patience for. It doesn't end either man's story there. Hudson recovers, slowly, without a speech, without anyone forgiving him out loud. He just starts showing up. When it comes out that the company man, Burke, had locked Ripley and the young girl Newt in a room with live facehuggers, hoping they'd be impregnated so he could smuggle a specimen back to Earth, it's Hudson who wants to pull a bullet in him on the spot. Rifle to his head, no hesitation. Ripley and Newt had already fought their way out clear of the room. What Hudson does is make sure everyone in the room knows exactly what Burke's plan cost and what he deserves for it. And in the film's final act, it's Hudson who holds the operations center under siege, buying time with everything he has left until it cost him his life. Gorman's turn is quieter and somehow even harder to watch. Vasquez, one of the Marines who made no secret of how little she thought of Gorman, who blamed him openly for what his freezing up cost them, ends up trapped with him in the finale. No way out. And rather than die alone, or die still holding on to her contempt for him, she chooses to die next to him. When Gorman moves to detonate the grenade that will kill them both, rather than let the aliens take them alive, Vasquez puts her hand over his. Not a word of forgiveness spoken, just a hand on a hand. It's one of the most quietly devastating images in the film, and it's aimed at the character who spent the first two acts being everyone's least favorite person in the room. Two different collapses, two different roads back. Same ending, both men dying, making sure someone else lives. Here's the part we're sitting with. Neither Gorman nor Hudson is the hero of Aliens. Ripley is the hero. She's the one the story is actually about. The one who makes the impossible choice, the one whose name is on the poster. Gorman and Hudson are supporting characters in someone else's story. And that's exactly why they matter so much to talk about. Because almost none of us are the main characters of a story like this. Most of us are Gorman. Most of us are Hudson. We're not the ones the camera stays on. We're the ones quietly having our worst day or our best day off to the side, in a role nobody's going to remember by name. And yet it counts anyways. And that's where this stops being a movie theory and starts being about something you already live every single day, especially if you're a parent. Nobody hands you the big cinematic moment as a parent. There's no alien queen, no ticking clock, no single scene where the whole story turns. What you get instead is Tuesday, and then Wednesday, 1,000 small first contact moments where you either hold it together or you don't. The meltdown in the grocery store, the fight nobody saw coming, the day you were too exhausted to be patient and you know it, in real time and you do it anyways. Some days you're Gorman, frozen, saying the wrong thing or nothing at all. Some days you're Hudson, saying the panic out loud in front of the room of people who need you to be steady. The thing both of these men prove, and the thing worth carrying out of a movie about acid-blooded monsters into a Tuesday afternoon with your kids, is this. The bad day doesn't get the final word unless you let it. Gorman's freeze didn't disqualify him from dying with courage. Hudson's panic didn't disqualify him from becoming the reason 2 people made it out alive. You don't need a clean record. You need to keep showing up for the next moment, because the next moment is where the redemption actually happens. Not in some later, bigger scene, but in the very next ordinary one. You are not always going to be the hero of your own story. Most days, you won't even be the star of the scene. But the failures and the wins that actually shape a life rarely belong to the star. They belong to the supporting cast. They belong to us.